right, I'm picking up right where the last video left off in Act 5, Scene 3, line 251. Really, line 250. Richmond has just said, I slept so great. This is going to be a really awesome day. It's time now to arm the men and give them direction. And so Richmond leaves his tent and gives an oration to his soldiers. And that's what I want to focus on here. In this scene, Richmond gives one speech and then Richard gives another. And so I'm going to focus first on Richmond's because his is first, and then we're going to contrast it with Richard's. So Richmond addresses, I'm going to switch colors here because, let's see, we'll do this. I'm going to switch colors here because, just to make things clearer. All right, so Richmond says, "More than I have said, loving countrymen, the leisure and enforcement of the time forbids to dwell upon." Like, we don't have a lot of time. But remember, God and our good cause fight upon our side. All right, so he begins by calling the people he's with loving, right? And they're not just loving, they're his loving countrymen. He doesn't say, my people. He doesn't say, you who follow me. He doesn't say, hey, troops. He says, my loving countrymen, right? So they're loving in lots of ways. And first, they love him. They're fighting for him. But also, it's right next to this word countrymen. They love their country. And so they're fighting because their cause is good, right? And because God wants to help them take care of England. Let's continue in 255. The prayers of holy saints and wronged souls, like high-reared bulwarks, stand before our faces. Richard, accept. Those whom we fight against had rather have us win than him they follow. For what is he they follow? Truly, gentlemen, a bloody tyrant and a homicide. All right, so he says, the people we're fighting against are also our countrymen, all right? Those whom we fight against had rather have us win than Richard. They're following a tyrant and a homicide, one raised in blood and one in blood established, okay? One that made means to come by what he hath and slaughtered those that were the means to help him. So you can tell that he is a good speaker. Okay, I'm going to switch to blue here. He's got this chiasmus, right? One raised in blood and one in blood established. One that made means to come by what he hath and slaughtered those that were the means to help, right? See how the sentences sort of fold back on themselves? A base foul stone made precious by the foil of England's chair. This is the crown, right? Where he is falsely set. One that hath ever been God's enemy. Then if you fight against God's enemy, God will in justice ward you as his soldiers. If you do sweat to put a tyrant down, you sleep in peace, the tyrant being slain. If you do fight against your country's foes, your country's fat shall pay your pains the higher, right? So this, if then, right, stuff, this section here, the special name for this is anaphora. When the things he says begin, right, with the same words over and over. There's also chiasmus. If you do fight in safeguard of your wives shall welcome home the conquerors, right? So these sentences again sort of fold here, let me spell chiasmus. The sentences fold in on themselves, and this is rhetorically really effective, right? So they're fighting to safeguard their wives. Your wives will welcome you home, you conquerors, right? If you do free your children from the sword, your children's children quits it in your age. Your grandchildren will repay you for it. Then in the name of God and all these rights, advance your standards. Draw your willing swords. This is really important. These people have chosen to back Richmond. For me, the ransom of my bold attempts shall be this cold corpse on the earth's cold face. But if I thrive, the gain of my attempt, the least of you shall share his part thereof. So if I fail, right? I'll die, and that'll be the end of it. But if I win, I will take you with me. I will give you a share of what I win. So therefore, sound drums and trumpets boldly and cheerfully, God and St. George, Richmond, and victory. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down now to Richard's speech. First, I'll point out that he says, "Oh, the sun's not out. That doesn't look great," right? So we scroll down to Richard's oration to his army. Okay, beginning, he says, "Let us to it pell-mell, if not to heaven, then hand in hand to hell." And so here we have Richard's oration to his army. Okay, so what shall I say more than I have inferred? Not, I'm running short of time, but I've already sort of said all this, right? Remember whom you are to cope withal. A sort of vagabonds, rascals, and runaways, a scum of Bretons and base lackey peasants, whom their o'ercloyed country vomits forth to desperate adventures and assured destruction. So Richard is saying these people with whom you're going to cope, not fight, but cope, are vagabonds, rascals, and runaways. They're scum, right? And they're foreigners. They're Britons. Breton is not Britain, but Brittany on the northern coast of France, okay? They're peasants. They're not like you, all right? You sleeping safe, they bring to you unrest. You having lands and blessed with beauteous wives, they would restrain the one, disdain the other. They would stain your wives. So he's taking a page out of Richmond's book here with chiasmus. But instead of talking about the good things that will happen if they fight for him, he talks about the bad things that will happen if they don't. And this is a big difference in their characters. Who doth lead them, Richard says, but a paltry fellow, long kept in Brittany at our mother's cost, the cost of England, right? A milksop. This is a kid, one that never in his life felt so much cold as overshoes and snow. So he has never had any problems, according to Richard. He's untried, untested. He's a kid. Why would you even want to fight for him at all? Like, they are fighting for this paltry fellow who isn't worth the crown. So he says, let's whip these stragglers over the seas again, right? We're going to whip them like slow animals. Lash hence these o'erweening rags of France. Again, he's pushing their foreignness. These famished beggars, weary of their lives. So Richard calls these people both beggars and vagabonds. And there were many, many, many laws passed against beggars and vagabonds during this time in Elizabethan England. So that's just a historical note here. Beggars and vagabonds were illegal. It was illegal to be a vagabond in England. It was illegal to be homeless. And so, who but for dreaming of this fond exploit for want of means, poor rats had hanged themselves, right? So Richard says, if we be conquered, let men conquer us, and not these bastard Bretons, whom our fathers have in their own land beaten, bobbed, and thumped. This is a long time ago, on the reign of Henry V. Henry V is the person who took over the north of France, and that was all lost. So that's who he's talking about, though. And in record left them the heirs of shame. So Richard goes on, shall these, right, these vagabonds, these beggars, these bastards, enjoy our lands, lie with our wives, ravish our daughters? He says, no, right? It's a rhetorical question. Hark, I hear their drum. Fight, gentlemen of England. Fight, bold yeomen. Draw, archers, draw your arrows to the head. Spur your proud horses hard, and ride in blood. Amaze the welkin with your broken staves. And so he doesn't end with like a blessing, right? He doesn't say like for victory, for England, for St. George. He says, kill them. I want to see their blood. Like, pull your arrows hard. Don't half pull them. Pull them really hard. You want them to go all the way through their bodies, right? And so this is what Richard is saying to his troops as they go into battle. He's warning them that these people who Richard would not even call men, right? These bastard Bretons would rape their wives and daughters and take their lands like this. We can't let them do this. They're not even good enough to conquer us.